Hello everybody, I'm Elwirfy, and today I wanted to make a video talking about this movie that I just saw with my wife. It's called May December. Now, this movie I thought was really interesting, and the reason why I wanted to talk about it on this channel was I think that it really brings up an interesting point. Now, obviously, for obvious reasons, the movie does cover a lot of interesting topics, I guess you could say, but I think what I really wanted to focus on, and the reason why I even picked this movie at all, is one, because I think you should see it. I think it's a good movie. I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. There are a bit of slow parts, but if you can sit through it, the slow, like, kind of silent parts, then yeah, I think it's really good, and I think you'd really like it. But more importantly, I think that it kind of, when I watched it, it brought up a topic that I think that we don't really get to talk about much, especially on YouTube at least. It feels like as people have gotten older, or at least my generation has gotten older, I'm almost 30, and, you never really get to look back on your childhood, really, and think about things that went wrong or right. But anyway, before I get into that, let's get into a quick synopsis of the movie with some fun visual examples. We all like those visual examples. So, here's the movie, just background stuff, just so you can have something to look at. But here's what's important, all right? So essentially, it's the story of, I guess, a retelling of something that really happened in my state, actually. Because I'm from Washington, and what the true story was that there was this teacher in no, I guess it would have been middle school. Yeah, a middle school teacher in Seattle who ended up sleeping with a sixth grader, actually. So I think they would have been like maybe 12 or 13. I didn't want that search history in my computer, so I'm not going to have that here for all of you. And I don't know. I think that it's interesting to make a movie. Now, this movie that we're talking about is set supposedly 20 years after the incident, and it has the main characters, Gracie, that's the name of the one who was a teacher, but now in this movie she's just an older woman. And then of course we have Joe. He's going to be the one who was a child when he had sex with the older woman. And remember, this woman Gracie, she already had a family. She had like a husband, 4 children. It's kind of crazy how this stuff went down, but there's a specific scene in the movie that I thought was absolutely wonderful. Again, as I always like to say, extra spoilers for this specific scene because I think this is really huge. There's this moment where Joe is sitting down on the roof with his son, who's about to graduate from high school and go to college. And there's a moment where he sees that his son wanted him to leave, so that way the son could smoke weed. And it is legal in Washington, just so you know. But what's important, I think, is that he looks at it and he ends up trying the weed, and then from trying the weed, he feels more comfortable and kind of looser, right? So he starts opening up, and he starts to kind of almost cry, like he's trying to hold it back because his son's there, but you can really tell, like, with his kids graduating, he's starting to feel like he's lost a lot of his childhood, and, like in real life, the woman, Gracie, she went to prison, and she was pregnant while she was in prison, and then she was released, and then she married the child after they got out. Really horrific stuff. So like this kid who was taken advantage of ended up marrying his abuser, which is really disappointing, and it's really heartbreaking to hear. But I just have to come back to that scene because I thought it was so profound that in a movie where it's really truly about abuse and about someone being taken advantage of and questioning kind of the role that adults have when they're around children and like what we need to be observant of, all this stuff, right? I really thought that the most interesting part of the movie was the fact that Joe was kind of coming to realize that he had lost his childhood, that it kind of went away. I mean, and like there's scenes when he's talking with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is an actress who's trying to portray Gracie in an upcoming movie. And there's a point where he's like talking, and he realizes that he admits that, hey, he had crushes on other kids, other people, but he's always been stuck essentially with Gracie, which is really upsetting. And there's a scene where he cheats on Gracie with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is, kind of encouraging him, like, hey, you can be whoever you want to be. You're an adult now. Like, you don't have to stay trapped, right? And he ends up like breaking down, and Joe realizes that he's lost like a big chunk of his life. And I felt like that was important to talk about because I think it really relates to just growing up as a whole, at least for me. Because, I don't know, I've been making YouTube videos for a long time. This is a big chunk of my life. I mean, I don't know how many years I've spent consecutively, I guess, or cumulatively, just making videos, talking to the camera, staring at you guys, trying my best to make entertaining content. And, there's always that lingering fear in the back of my mind, at least, that, maybe I'm wasting some of my time. I don't know. I guess I've just always felt that movies that want to make stories about lots of different things, I find that I always at least get interested in topics that the movie might hint on, but doesn't necessarily fully explore. Because the movie seems to end pretty abruptly, because the graduation happens, and then we cut to a scene where Elizabeth who's played by Natalie Portman, is just like trying her best to be a good actress and really get into the role of the character. And I don't know, we don't really get to explore what happens. We don't know if Joe ends up leaving Gracie to go try and find his own life. Throughout the movie, Joe's always watching these videos of like people fixing things, kind of, I think, reminiscent of the fact that he wants to be treated and respected as a man rather than seen as a boy, because that's how Gracie always seemed to treat him. And, there's always this desire in us to want to try and be better than who we are, and to want to grow up to be someone who's important or someone who's useful. And in the beginning of the movie, Joe, he's kind of just like not there. He's just kind of like absentmindedly just like kind of following around Gracie, doing whatever she needs. And it's the opening up of his independence, I think, that is truly fascinating and truly worth the watch. Like, that's why I'm recommending the movie. In terms of the story between Elizabeth and Gracie, I thought it was fine. There's certainly some weird moments in the movie where Elizabeth is getting into the character a little bit too much. She's kind of copying her, kind of trying to emulate her as best as possible to really sink into the role, and it's pretty much method acting, and it's weird, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I felt like it kind of took away from the actual story, which is, in my opinion, Joe figuring out how to be an independent person, and especially now that his kids are off to college, and he's realizing, hey, I don't know if he went to college or not, but it seems like with Gracie being in prison and the fact that she's so manipulative, because there's these scenes in the movie where she'll like break down and be crying, and she'll be so reliant on Joe to take care of her that her reliance actually ends up being a weapon that traps Joe into staying with her. Because there's even a moment that my wife caught. I didn't realize it right away, but there's a moment that my wife caught where when Joe has the affair and he sleeps with Elizabeth, the actress, he accidentally calls Elizabeth Grace. And I thought, I didn't catch it, but my wife said, oh, look at that. Because Elizabeth is trying so hard to get into the flow of becoming Gracie, that Joe actually is able to view Elizabeth as Gracie, and that's why he's able to sleep with her, because he feels like it's almost the same person. It doesn't necessarily feel to him like he's cheating in the moment, because he feels like he's having sex with someone he's always been with. And then part of his immaturity shows actually when he's surprised that Elizabeth doesn't want to have a long-term relationship with him, because she says that's just what adults do. Adults just have casual sex sometimes, and he's not experienced with that because he's never been with anyone besides this older woman ever since he was in 6th grade, which is crazy. Just crazy stuff. And yeah, like, we don't get movies like this that often that really explore kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, it's a damn good movie. And I think you would be sad if you didn't watch it. I certainly did a little bit of self-reflecting and kind of the choices I've made, after watching this and thinking, well, I've been making content to entertain people for a long time, and I really always hope that I'm doing my best, but I wouldn't be surprised if I've missed out on other opportunities because of my commitment to this. Like, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, when I was in school growing up, all my friends, they were on like the soccer team or the wrestling team and stuff. But because of my disabilities, I never really got to do any of that, and, my parents, they didn't have a lot of money. I never got to live in a college dorm. I always had to take the bus. I've always lived with my parents up until I met my wife and then we moved out together. But, I've missed out on some of these like critical experiences that I've always grown up thinking about. I mean, even prom, it wasn't really that great for me. I didn't really like it that much. I don't know. They're just all these experiences that I thought were going to go one way, and they didn't end up being that way. And it's me making these YouTube videos for you guys that I think still connects me back to my 15-year-old self, that makes me feel like I'm still me, that like I haven't, lost who I am, I think. And it has allowed me to keep a foundation where I'm now able to grow and mature into my own adult self, as you see me talking to you now. Yeah. And that's kind of what the movie made me feel. I don't know how the movie's going to make you guys feel. You guys might get a different connection to it. I'm not going to tell you what to think, though. But yeah, I really hope you guys watch it. I thought it was super cool. It was really interesting, and I really liked it. So as always, guys, I'm Elwirfy, and I'll definitely see you all next time. Take care, everyone.